They became one of the most legendary rock bands in history, selling over 40 million albums and redefining progressive rock. But before Rush filled stadiums and earned critical acclaim, they were broke, exhausted, and playing for almost no one. Geddy Lee once said, "It was a nightmare. We had no money, no support, and every door slammed in our face." So how did three kids from Toronto, facing rejection at every turn, rise from near obscurity to become one of the most respected bands of all time? Geddy Lee, born Gary Lee Weinrib in Toronto in 1953, grew up surrounded by music. His parents, both Holocaust survivors, worked tirelessly to support their family, and Geddy developed a deep respect for hard work at a young age. Inspired by bands like Cream and Led Zeppelin, Geddy picked up the bass and began jamming with his childhood friend Alex Lifeson. In 1968, the two teenagers, along with drummer John Rutsey, officially formed Rush. Their dream was simple but ambitious: to bring their unique mix of blues rock and heavy riffs to audiences across Canada. But dreams didn't pay the bills. By the early 1970s, Rush was grinding through a relentless schedule of shows in small bars, school auditoriums, and bowling alleys. They drove themselves from gig to gig in an old van, hauling their own equipment and often sleeping on floors. For years, the band played 5 or 6 nights a week, for very little money. As Geddy recalled later, "We had no real support system. We weren't part of any scene. We were just these 3 guys playing wherever anyone would have us. It was brutal." Despite the hardships, their dedication began to sharpen their sound. They focused on tight musicianship, long instrumental passages, and lyrics that reflected their love of science fiction and literature, all elements that would eventually define Rush's progressive rock style. But in these early days, they were far from the international acclaim they'd one day enjoy. Rush's early touring life was grueling. Without a major record label or management team to support them, the band booked their own shows and drove endless miles across Canada and the northern United States. Geddy Lee has often described these years as some of the hardest of his life. "It was a nightmare. We had no money, no support, and every door slammed in our face." The band members often went hungry, wearing the same clothes for days and scraping together gas money just to get to their next gig. Their first self-titled album, Rush, was recorded independently in 1974, financed by their own savings and with help from local radio DJ Donna Halper, who believed in their sound. Initially, no major label wanted to sign them, and the record struggled to gain traction. But everything changed when a small radio station in Cleveland, Ohio, decided to play their track Working Man. The gritty, blue-collar anthem resonated with local listeners, and suddenly, Rush had an audience outside of Canada. This unexpected radio success led to a record deal with Mercury Records, finally giving the band the platform they desperately needed. When John Rutsey left the band in 1974 due to health concerns and the pressures of constant touring, Rush faced a crossroads. They needed not only a drummer, but also someone who could match their growing ambition. The answer came in the form of Neil Peart, a young musician from St. Catharines, Ontario, who auditioned just 2 weeks before Rush embarked on their first major U.S. tour. Peart's technical skill behind the drums was unlike anything Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson had seen. He didn't just play, he crafted intricate rhythms that would become central to Rush's sound. But Peart brought more than drumming. He also became the band's primary lyricist. Drawing inspiration from literature, philosophy, and science fiction, his writing added a level of sophistication that would set Rush apart from other rock bands of the time. Almost immediately, Peart's presence energized the group. Rush began developing the progressive rock style that would define them, moving away from straightforward blues rock to more complex compositions. This shift wasn't without risk. Progressive rock wasn't always radio-friendly, but it gave Rush their unique identity. Their first album with Peart, Fly By Night, released in 1975, showcased this evolution. Tracks like the title song and By Tour and The Snow Dog hinted at the musical exploration that would soon make Rush legendary. Still, commercial success remained elusive, and the band continued to slog through long tours, building their fan base one city at a time. While Fly By Night gained Rush critical attention, mainstream acceptance was still far off. Their music was seen as too complex for traditional radio, and the band found themselves once again proving their worth through relentless touring. In 1976, Rush took their biggest creative risk yet with 2112, a concept album featuring a 20-minute science fiction-inspired title track. Many record executives advised against it, worried that an album with such an ambitious opener would fail commercially. But Geddy Lee and his bandmates stood their ground. They were determined to make music their own way, even if it meant losing their record deal. The gamble paid off. 2112 became a breakthrough, earning gold certification and establishing Rush as leaders of the progressive rock movement. Songs like Temples of Syrinx resonated with young listeners who felt alienated by mainstream culture. Rush wasn't just a band, they were a voice for outsiders, musicians who refused to compromise. This success didn't erase the struggles of the early years. Geddy often reflected on how those grueling tours and countless rejections shaped their work ethic. "When every door gets slammed in your face," he once said, "you either give up or you work twice as hard." We chose the latter. With Pert's lyrics, Lifeson's guitar mastery, and Geddy's unmistakable voice and bass playing, Rush finally had a formula that was both innovative and commercially viable. By the late 1970s, they were no longer playing to half-empty clubs. They were headlining arenas. As Rush transitioned into the 1980s, success came at a cost. With their album Permanent Waves in 1980 and the landmark Moving Pictures in 1981, Rush became one of the biggest rock acts in the world. Songs like Tom Sawyer and Limelight became anthems, cementing their reputation as virtuoso musicians. But with constant touring, Geddy Lee, Alex Lifeson, and Neil Peart lived most of their lives on the road. For Geddy, this period was both exhilarating and exhausting. "We didn't stop," he later recalled. "It was just album tour, album tour. You forget where home is." Neil Peart also struggled with fame, famously avoiding the limelight and preferring solitude to the trappings of rock stardom. The band's tight-knit brotherhood kept them going, but there were cracks beneath the surface. Creative tensions occasionally surfaced, and the grind of life as a progressive rock powerhouse tested their resolve. Despite these challenges, Rush never compromised their sound or their vision. They experimented with synthesizers in the mid-80s, adapted to changing music trends, and still filled arenas worldwide. Their dedication to evolving while staying true to themselves set them apart from their contemporaries. By the 1990s and early 2000s, Rush had reached legendary status, selling over 40 million albums globally. Yet their journey wasn't without personal tragedies. Neil Peart lost his daughter in a car accident in 1997 and his wife to cancer soon after. He retreated from music for years, leaving fans uncertain about the band's future. Incredibly, Peart returned, and Rush released Vapor Trails in 2002. Their resilience inspired millions, proving that this was more than a band. It was a family, bound by music and survival. In 2013, Rush was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, finally receiving the recognition they had long deserved. Rush's final tour, R40 Live in 2015, marked the end of an era. When Neil Peart passed away in 2020 after a battle with brain cancer, it closed the chapter on one of rock's most extraordinary stories. Rush's journey remains one of rock's ultimate stories of perseverance. From playing smoky bars for pocket change to becoming one of the most technically brilliant and beloved bands in history, they proved that integrity and artistry could triumph over every obstacle. Thanks for watching. Click here to check another video and make sure to subscribe to our channel.